Welcome to the Nuts and Bolts of Real Estate podcast. My name is Joe Bauer, and I'm here with my co-host, Julie Clark. Julie, how you doing today?
I am doing good, Joe. We were just talking about how I just booked like a 6-day trip to Whistler, Canada in February. Whoop, whoop. Ready to, hit the mountain with my little Clarkies. And now we have something to look forward to since it's only October. Looking forward to that. And how about
Yeah.
you? What are you guys up to?
We're still in Enumclaw, but we're planning on heading back down to Bend in a little while. We just got news that Emily's new bike that she's building in or from a bike shop in Bend, because they're so hard to get right now. Just the frame should be getting in this week, so we'll head down there. But before we jump into that, have I ever told you the story about how we planned a big trip to Whistler and there was no snow in?
Oh. Please don't
I
tell me that. Yeah.
I just thought it was kind of relevant because you just plan a trip to Whistler, and we've gone there tons of times and there's tons of snow, but there was this one time where we showed up and there was people mountain biking in January instead of skiing. And we were like, oh no.
Lord, so that's why we always go in February, because we feel it's the safe time to go. We go about mid-February, right when the smack of things there.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm not sure if I said it on the show yet, but we confirmed our booking for Steamboat in February this year. So we'll be down to Steamboat.
You know what I just heard is, remember, that Empire Builder train that goes from here to Montana? It just derailed.
What?
It derailed, yeah, with passengers on board. So I think I'll think twice about that one. But I was thinking about maybe doing the Empire Builder this year and booking it. Where does that go? Do you know where it lands, that train? Is it Whitefish or something like that? Is there a mountain at Whitefish?
So there is a mountain in Whitefish, and it's really fun. We've been before.
What's the name of that one? You remember?
I think it's just Whitefish Resort. Yeah.
That sounds like a good trip. Anyways, we digress. Here we are. We're supposed to be talking about real estate. We're so excited for the winter. I don't know. We like winter almost more than we like summer, frankly. We'll have to ask Dan. We'll have to invite Dan, our guest Dan, out today because he's a mountain guy, to maybe have a little fun out at Mount Rainier. If you have never been to Mount Rainier, it is overlooked. I feel like people don't go to Mount Rainier enough. And you know why? Because they can't bring their dog.
Yeah.
You can't bring your dog. So I'm like, let's go to Rainier. It's like the best place we could possibly go in our state. And they're like, oh, we can't bring the dog. I'm like, leave the damn dog at home. But anyways, well, let me get my cheat sheet notes up here, and we will jump into it today with our new friend, Dan. So yeah, guys, we've been talking about land investing lately. And Dan Haberkost, am I saying that right, Dan?
Yeah, spot on.
Right on. He is the founder of Front Range Land, which sources, purchases, develops parcels across Pueblo West. That's Colorado, right?
Yep.
Colorado. And here's the best part, you guys. Dan, you're 25? Do I have that right? Or are you 26?
Yeah,
how old are you?
25.
25 years old. And he has already built an impressive real estate business and a growing rental portfolio. So today we're going to have some fun, get to know Dan, and at the same time, bring you guys all some big inspiration and motivation to go get this going on your own in your own biz. So let's jump straight into it. Welcome, Dan.
Thanks, Julie.
Yeah.
Appreciate you both having me. And I think you said to start off a little bit just with background and what got me started.
Yeah, we're going to let Joe officially ask
Okay.
it.
Go ahead.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for being on the show. But the first question is just that we like to get to know people on the show better. A lot of times other shows or whatnot will skip by this, but we like to know where you grew up, how that led you into the crazy world of real estate that we're in today. So if you have any details, we'd love to hear them.
Sure, Joe. Yeah, I can take you back. I grew up in a rural town in Ohio. I like to joke I grew up in a cornfield. And, very stereotypical, ultra-conservative, kind of lower middle class, Midwest background where the world's always ending. No one really had any money. No one was an entrepreneur. Everyone complained about their jobs. And, because of that, if I wanted anything, I had to go make money on my own. So, in middle school, I was buying and selling stuff on eBay so I could go buy a paintball gun, right? And then high school, I got a job at a Christmas tree farm, actually, so I could buy my first car. And it was that way all through high school and college. And long story short, by the time I was in college, I was working full time running a landscaping business, and that was 45 to 50 hours a week, along with school. And that was a lot.
You said in high school.
That's college. Yeah,
Okay,
that's college.
Okay.
In high school, I ended up managing that farm for a while and going to school and all kinds of things. But I didn't want to spend too much time on that. The point of it is that I started working at a young age, and I was running other people's businesses throughout my teens and up until I was about 20. And that wasn't a whole lot of fun, but it was apparent to me that I had developed a skill set at a young age that would be useful as an adult. And I looked around and I kind of saw the environment I was raised in, and I thought, okay, well, I don't have to do the same thing that everyone else has done. Like I was saying, everyone complained about their jobs. It wasn't just, my family or parents. It was my friends, everyone. It was just the norm, right? You got a job, you didn't really like it. You worked 40 years, and that was that. And that's kind of the norm in the Midwest, at least where I grew up. So I said, well, how do I take this experience I've gotten over the last few years, and this was me at about 20, I'm getting to the second half of college. How do I take this experience, these skills I've learned, and apply them to some sort of business or investing so that when I'm done with school, I can accelerate my financial position and not live the same sort of life that everyone around me has. And so I started reading, right? I read about stocks, different businesses, real estate, and Rich Dad, Poor Dad, just like I think everyone else, is what really got my attention. I read that book and it was like a light bulb went off. And around that same time, I'm at work, and my coworker over lunch, we were just chatting. He goes, yeah, we just finished renovating the duplex, and my wife and I are downstairs, tenants are upstairs, so they're paying the mortgage. And I go, well, that's interesting. And again, at the same time, I just read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And so I think it was him who introduced me to Bigger Pockets. But around that time, I also discovered Bigger Pockets. So at that point, I'm just turning 21, bought my first duplex while I was in college, actually, house hacked it. And then since then, I ended up moving out of Ohio. I live in Colorado. Like both of you, love snowboarding, love the mountains. I'd absolutely come and climb and ride Rainier at some point. But so now I live in Colorado, and the active business that I have now is the land and development we talked about. So buying and selling land, some for cash, some on notes, building some houses, and working on right now, scaling that. I'm looking at a whole subdivision I'm going to try and buy here on Thursday, so we can get into that. And then on the passive side, I have a portfolio of rentals, all residential, but looking to move into the commercial space here in the near future, because I don't just want to buy house after house after house. I want to scale that the same way I've been able to do with the land and development. So that was a quick synopsis, but kind of gives you an idea of where I'm at today and what I'm working on.
That is super awesome. What do your friends think of you? I'm curious to know what your friends,
well,
do any of them work for you? I mean,
a lot of my friends are much older than myself at this point. But I mean, I don't know. I was always a little bit precocious. So the people that grew up with me, I don't think are very surprised. And then I do have some friends that I snowboard and mountain bike with and that sort of thing. And they just have no idea. I just tell them I'm in real estate, and I don't really tell them anything about what I'm doing. And I kind of like having a small portion of life where nobody knows anything about business and I don't have to talk about it. But a lot of my friends are in the business. A lot of people that I do business with, I also go snowboard and mountain bike with. So, it's kind of all over the board.
So what was your first deal?
It was a duplex in Parma, Ohio. And that was the house hack. One unit was close to turnkey. One unit was trashed. So I moved into the trash unit, rented out upstairs, and ended up moving and just giving it to a property manager.
And how did you buy it? Did you buy it off the MLS or?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was while I was still working at that landscaping company, finishing college. So I had a full-time W-2 income. And of course I paid for, my car and school. And so I didn't have any debt. So it was very easy to qualify for a duplex, especially in the cheap Midwest.
Right on. And how you pay for deals these days now?
The one that we just closed on, that seller financing, he financed it 100% and then just put money up for the rehab. And the one before that I bought in June, that was just another owner occupied house hack. That's a great way to pick up properties, especially in expensive markets. I
just saw on your Facebook page that it looks like you just picked up a sweet rental with 100% seller financing. Tell us about that deal. How did you end up how were you able to get that seller financing deal?
Yeah. So, whoops, sorry, my computer turned off for a moment there. Anyways, so it was actually a lead from Craigslist. Craigslist is the most underappreciated platform ever. I have gotten more buyers, great tenants, and now deals off of there than any other platform, even the ones I've paid for. But he made a post that he was an older investor looking to start selling off his properties, starting with this first property. And for him, what he was looking for, the important thing for him was a reliable borrower. So he had more money than he needed, and he was just tired. It was one of those guys who never learned to offload. And so he's still really been a solopreneur, even at 70 years old. And that's a great way to burn out. So he's tired, has more cash than he needs, and wants to just go retire and spend time with his wife and kids. So that's why the deal presented itself, because this was a problem house that he didn't want to go deal with, and he's tired. So got it at 250. And then part of the value here is I have a relationship with a contractor here who I've helped, given a lot of business. So he's living and rehabbing the house. It'll be about a 3-week project here. And he's doing that for just a very competitive rate, to say the least. So all in, it's going to be about 20,000 in cash. ARV is about 340. So that's a pretty solid deal. But I mean, it is important, or if I had seen this deal 3-4 years ago, it would have been very intimidating. We had to lower the main beam. We had to replace the front sewer line and a complete cosmetic rehab. It's just disgusting. And those, again, would have been intimidating things to do several years ago. But after you do this for a while, after building some houses, it really becomes simple, and they're all just numbers on the pro forma. And they're problems that I know how to solve or to find the people to solve. So one of the biggest things I want to say to anyone who's brand new is it gets much easier over time. As I see you shaking your head in agreement. So I'm sure you've experienced the same.
We talked to a lot of people that, some great stories of how people get started. And I call it fall forward a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. They just go for it and they learn as they go, and hopefully they don't lose too much money. But once you get your systems down, your mindset right, and all that jazz, it starts to become easier. Even though I know we've been, some of my friends and I have been talking about lately that it seems like 1 out of, I don't know, everybody's average is different. 1 out of 10 deals might go sideways or not be such a great deal, or maybe it's 1 out of 6. I guess it depends, on people. But, I'm seeing people for some reason this last week complain that they've got a bad deal on their plate. And I don't know if that's just because of the mix of people losing control of, it's so expensive these days. The cost of everything is going up. I'm actually listing a big new construction house this week out here in the Seattle area. And, they just got hammered by the lumber prices. They just happened to pick the deal up, and, just the cost of everything's gone up. But let's jump into the land stuff.
Sure.
So why did you decide to, I know you do some rentals and you're doing some flips now and that kind of thing, but we want to pick your brain about the land stuff. How did you get started? Why did you consider investing in land, and what does that mean? Are you flipping raw land parcels? Are you doing entitlements and reselling them to like end buyers that you build for, or to developers, which, obviously is would be a great source of huge profits there if you could pull that off. And it sounds like you're moving, like you said, you're about to look to buy a subdivision. But why did you look at land? And how did you start learning about it or get started?
Yeah. So I think the first point I want to make is shortly after buying my first 2 properties, so house hack in Ohio, gave to a property manager, house hack in Colorado when I moved, the realization that the low and no money down strategies are great for getting started. But this is a cash intensive business, and it's a lot easier if you can go figure out how to make a substantial income. So I want to put that out there, that the first thing that pushed me in that direction is, okay, I need to figure out how to make a lot of money that I can just then put into long-term buy and hold. So there's two buckets, right? And the way I got into land, to set the context, here in Colorado, it's a little bit different than where I grew up in Ohio. In Ohio, most of the towns are built out, whereas out here, there's all kinds of failed or started subdivisions from many, many years ago. I'm sure you see this out your way too in some of the second and tertiary markets. So that presents a lot of opportunity. And then on top of that, I'm somewhere where a lot of people are moving, right? Colorado's been one of those states. Denver, the Springs have gotten very busy. Okay, so I'm just kind of setting the stage here. Now, at the same time, I met a guy at the real estate group here that I actually now host, who had been in the business his whole life, 40 some years, and he wanted help in his business. And in return, he offered to, show me what he knew. And fast forward to today, we're good friends, business partners. We do a lot of deals together. But he's the one who initially got me into land, because he's from here, Denver, and then had spent a lot of time in California. Again, these are areas that have a lot of these failed subdivisions where there's a lot of opportunity, and there's just vacant parcels of land with utilities. They're ready to go, right? So to answer your first question, I'm trying to bookmark all the things I want to say in response to your question here. To answer your first question, I buy and sell land for cash. I buy and sell land on notes. And then on the prime parcels, I'll build a house on them, if the numbers make sense.
Okay.
And then your last point, yes. So the subdivision I'm looking at on Thursday, it looks like the final plat is about to be approved by the city, but then the roads and utilities have to be extended. And the developer, much like the landlord that I just bought this house from, he's tired. He doesn't want to deal with it anymore. So we're going to meet and see if we can put something together, because at the end of the day, the person who does that development work to get a finalized lot or a group of lots, you can sell for a huge margin to the end builders. So,
right. Exactly. Well, that's exciting. That's good stuff. So have you, most of the land deals that you've done up to this point, looks like I have a feeling you're going to do well on your subdivision here. So the key is, when you got started, somebody taught you to look for these failed subdivisions, right? That's how you kind of initially got into it. Is that where you focus still? Your land business is looking for, you have like you said, a tired or an older, maybe builder or developer who's just ready to, didn't take it all the way there, or about to just wants to get out, or those are the two things that you focus on these days, or any like raw land, rural land, or anything like that, or always?
Good question. Yeah, good question. I have not done any rural raw land. Everything I've done has been within subdivisions, and I know plenty of people who make a lot of money with purely rural recreational land. So it can be done.
Yeah.
That's just not my wheelhouse, right? The value of niching down has, especially recently, become more and more apparent. So I focus on these turnkey subdivisions up to this point, again, where I'm just buying these infill lots. Maybe there's a house, a vacant lot, another house, or a couple vacant lots between houses. But the significance of that is somebody already spent a ton of time and a ton of money to develop that land. They took a huge piece of vacant land. They went through the process of getting it platted, subdivided, bringing utilities. That all takes a lot of time and a lot of money. So these lots are what we would call shovel ready, meaning I don't have to improve the land at all. I can just dig a foundation and just pay the tap fee, connect to the utilities, and get the house built, right? So that's where my focus has been, because there's such an advantage to having shovel ready land. And then also, these markets have all been second and third level markets from the major metros that have been growing. So here in Colorado, it's been really straightforward. It just goes straight down the Front Range, straight down I-25. Denver blew up, then Colorado Springs, now even Pueblo. There's a lot of money going down there. So it's really been very clear where the path of progress is going. And I just kind of went in front of it with Pueblo West, and then further south in Colorado City. I think that answers the question.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense, right? It's not that even hard to understand what you're doing. It's just that, you're in out here, we'd have to think about where that's happening, maybe in Eastern Washington a little bit for us here, but, that is super interesting. So, who's your best buyer? Like, do you want to build the house, or do you sometimes just sell to the end buyer who wants to build their own house, or what do you prefer? Which is the way?
Yeah, the vast majority of the time, I am just selling the land to either the end user who's going to build their own house, or in certain areas to the other spec builders who will just build and then sell. To give you an example of where I'm building, it's only if it's a really prime lot that I get at a great price. And so there's a substantial spread and it'll just be easy to sell. So I've got a house being built on the golf course in Colorado City right now. I got the lot for $1,000. Everything's right there as far as utilities. That one just made sense. I'm going to make a far more substantial spread building on that. Another example, closing on a lot next Tuesday that I got, and it's actually in the middle. I got kind of lucky in the middle of a subdivision within Pueblo West that a much larger builder's doing. So he just repaved that road. He improved all the water and sewer lines, and it's surrounded by new builds. So, that context, it just makes a lot of sense to put a new build there. It's a commutable distance to Colorado Springs. So the majority of the time, I do just flip the land. I've done about 60 land flips in the last year. But here and there, I'll build a house where it makes sense, and it just leads to larger chunks of income on top of the notes and the land flips.
How are you finding, I know you know which builders to call, but if you're selling to a retail buyer that's going to build their own house, are you listing the lots for sale? Are you just marketing them on Craigslist or these places, or how are you marketing to get those types of deals done?
Sure. So some of the land that is more geared towards the end buyer and fewer spec builders will buy, those ones I'll list with realtors a lot of times. And then I pay for like land.com, and then I put it on Facebook, or I don't do it at this point. My acquisitions manager pretty much handles most of the business at this point. But Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, land.com, signs, sometimes I list them, and then we just keep all the data right in Pipedrive. So we have a buyer's list of our own at this point.
So when you're looking at these, you're looking at subdivisions, what exactly is in place on these parcels? You mean like roads are in place and sidewalks, and you have water and sewer already stubbed out on the property? What is your ideal situation that you're looking for?
You hit the nail on the head there. I want the power box. I did a YouTube video on this recently because I get asked this question all the time. I want the power box in the back of the lot, water and sewer at the street, ideally a natural gas line right there, and then houses on both sides, because again, then everything is there and it's as simple as it gets. So yeah, you described it, just all utilities there, and flat's really important, and power being close is another big consideration.
Drainage.
Yeah. Unless it's a weird slope or topography, that's generally not an issue, because these areas I'm building in are just huge tracts of homogeneous lots. It's the same thing over and over and over again. It's really simple.
Yeah. And so are you buying, I saw some of your videos, you'll buy some stuff occasionally, maybe that requires septic?
Yes. So those ones I have, especially recently, I'm not going to build on any more of those, because for whatever reason, at least in Pueblo West, the requirements have gotten more stringent, and that can be such a variable. If you have you have ideal soil conditions, it can be $6,000 to $8,000. If you have an issue with shale or expansive clay or something, it could lead to a $30,000 septic. So those ones also at the same time have gone up in price the most, those lots that require septic. So those ones I've just been selling to end buyers, and I have not been touching as far as developing.
Hey guys, it's Julie here with a quick break from the show to discuss an opportunity some of you may have interest in, which is to work more closely with me. On almost a daily basis, I get calls from investors and brokers, both new and experienced, asking me for guidance or advice. I love helping you guys out, and it keeps me on my toes too. So with that said, I wanted to let you know that I have a private broker coaching community called the VIP Education Community. And the best part is that it's 100% free. That's right, it's free to join. So whether you're a traditional broker or a broker investor, my VIP Education Community offers personalized one-on-one coaching from not just me, but also from my experienced broker friends with expertise in all disciplines of real estate and real estate investing. We'll teach and share our modern marketing strategies, our tech and lead generation resources, plus teach you how to identify or offer up opportunities for yourself or for your clients using techniques such as seller financing, lease options, land entitlement deals, BRRRR investing, flipping, multifamily or commercial coaching, whatever you like. We've got it all covered for you. The future of real estate is changing fast, and to stay in the game, it's time to learn about all the options you can offer your buyer and seller clients, as well as, if you want, learn how to use those skills to grow your own real estate portfolio. If you'd like more details about joining my VIP education community, reach out to me at julie@seattleinvestorsclub.com or text me at 206-910-2985 or just send me a Facebook message. My new favorite phrase is community equals confidence. So let's navigate the future of real estate together. Now, back to the show.
So if you were to come across a deal that you think looks interesting, that you want to research further, right? A land deal, what are like the first 3 things you're going to do, or the first 3 to 5 things you're going to do? So somebody's like, hey, Dan, here's a deal, or you found one. You go straight to what?
Great question. Utilities is the first question. Always double check utilities. Pueblo West is pretty straightforward. Other than a few small sections, the whole city has water and sewer, or water and is large enough for septic. But go to Colorado City, which is a little further down south, down the Front Range, and it's bizarre. It's like someone just threw darts at a dartboard. The water lines just stop, and there'll be a sewer line and then no water. It's just, so number one, immediately check utilities.
How do you check utilities? Like, how do you do?
So in that market, I just call the Metro District, or have, my employee call the Metro District. However, in some markets, it's not that simple. So there's a market out in Nevada that I'm just getting into. A friend of mine actually recommended it to me. And there you have to submit something, a form online, to figure out if the water rights are relinquished, and if there's water. It's a little more complex. So that's going to vary.
Water rights involved. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then number 2, I'm going to check, depending on the market, right? I'm going to check the width of the lot, make sure it's large enough that you can actually build a sizable home on it. And then number 3 would be the topography, right? Because there's these random lots that are just a massive slope, or something, there's shale sticking out of the ground, where it's clearly going to be very expensive to excavate. For those who don't know, it's just a very, very hard rock that's very difficult to dig through, and makes excavation very expensive. So those would be the first 3 things. But again, it's applicable more to these subdivisions that I'm in, because it's a little simpler and a little easier, as opposed to if you're doing the vacant land, or maybe you're in a more mature market and it's not just a huge homogeneous subdivision. It can be, or there can be, a lot more due diligence per lot, or per parcel, just depending on your market. So it's not always that simple.
Right. Is there, I've worked with some builders and stuff myself, been around a long time. Now, is there, as far as like the distance away of your connection, that can add, I don't know, out here, it can add a lot of money, right? How far away is the water or sewer connection? Does that happen to you where, or is it, do you feel like if it's within 100 feet or something, that sounds like a little bit, that's a positive, or it crosses over a certain barrier where you're like, that's too far away, that connection. It's out there, but it's just too far away. Or it just matters what deal you get, I guess, on the numbers, right? Because it just costs money to get out there.
So the lots I'm building on, it's at the lot line, at the edge of the lot. So it's right there. However, what you just said is still applicable to power in my market. So each pole is about $2,000 if I need to add poles, right? So that is absolutely a consideration. And in other markets, it is applicable for the water and sewer as well, as you were explaining.
What's the ideal lot size and width, as you say?
So in Pueblo West, it's about as simple as it gets. The whole center of town, they're all about, 150 deep and 80 wide. And then on the north side, well, it's really the outskirts of the town. That's where you have water, but it's no sewer, it's septic. Those are all just over an acre. And honestly, at that size, you can easily fit a single family house. So I'm not even sure what they are approximately width and length. So yeah, again, that's the value of these subdivisions, is it's just the same thing over and over and over and over again.
Awesome stuff. So what is on your search criteria right now in regards to properties you want to purchase, aside from, the rental or the BRRRRs or the buy and hold flips and stuff like that? If you're looking for a deal, I know you're trying to level up to subdivisions and bigger opportunities, right? Mm-hmm. And so how are you going about, are you like pulling lists and doing direct to seller lead generation? I know you're probably searching, your Facebooks and your Craigslist and all that stuff, but what's your lead generation method and what's the criteria that you're looking for right now? Just curious.
Okay, so good question. In the land business, almost all my leads come from mailers. I have a few people cold calling now too, but mailers have been the bread and butter. But that is as simple as just repeatedly scrubbing these subdivisions as far as the simple infill lots over and over again. I've mailed some of the same areas 5 times this year and I've gotten deals every single time. So it's just follow up and talking to people at the right time. So that segment of the business is really simple. Those are the easy land flips. Now on what I'm working on getting into, the larger subdivisions, that I'm doing cold calling. Again, I'm not doing it, but that's far more niche, right? There are far fewer areas and we're talking much larger parcels. And then even among the parcels, it tends to be just a couple players, right? This is a very, very small world. And then when you get into small markets, there's a couple 100,000 people in Pueblo. I think it's in the 3s. So, it's a smaller market. There is a very, very small group of people that own those huge, huge parcels. So repeated follow-up, right? And then it's identifying before you know who to call, you have to identify the right areas. What's the path of progress to even do something like this? And again, with 2008 having been so recent, there are so many subdivisions that had been failed, right? And maybe some money had already been put into them. There's one I just missed, actually. It just got sold. I was too late. It was a whole subdivision completely done, curb and gutter, water, sewer, everything. So that would have been a great opportunity, but I missed it. So all the towns in Colorado have been growing in a very predictable fashion. The ones along the Front Range. So Denver, just east, right? It's built out like to the airport for anyone who's familiar with the area. Colorado Springs, it's touching the city out east now. It's past the airport. It's basically going to Kansas. And the same thing is happening in Pueblo. The northeast side has the golf course, the college, and they're just building. And on top of that, there are these huge parcels, right, along that same path of progress that had been annexed back into the city before the last crash. And so they now will be serviced as far as utilities from the Pueblo. Okay, so that's a big deal, right? Because that land was not annexed into the city prior to, I think, 2007 or 2008. And on top of that, a lot of those parcels have already been subdivided. So very clearly, that's where the path to progress is. Without going on a long tangent here, that's the area I'm targeting because there's very clear growth going in that direction. And you got the college, the golf course, nice area.
Doesn't like D.R. Horton or Toll Brothers and these big builders, I don't know which ones are out there by you, but don't they have people on their team that would be going after the same stuff that you would be interested in at this point?
That's a great question. The big builders will not touch the stuff that is not completely ready, right?
Shovel ready.
Yeah, shovel ready is the right word. So like the parcel I'm looking at on Thursday, to use it as an example, it is in the stage, and I believe it's this week, where the city is about to either approve or deny the plat. And so they're well before the point that the big builders would buy that. The roads need to be brought in. The utilities need to be brought in. For some of the large builders, they won't even touch it unless there's already a graded pad site with the utilities stubbed right to the pad site. So no, generally speaking, they are looking for someone like me or you to come in and get the land ready for them, and they'll pay a premium for it. So there's a lot of opportunity to make a serious return there. Awesome. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do.
So what if you know this area in Colorado like the back of your hand? If you, like you just mentioned, you might be going into the Vegas market. When you're going to go to a new market, is that the first market outside of your strike zone that you're going to?
Yeah, it would be outside of Colorado. Yes. Yep.
And so when you're going to look outside, because obviously we're here in the Pacific Northwest and with people listening from everywhere, they're not all going to run up to Colorado where you're at. They're going to be looking for stuff in their own markets, right? Mm-hmm. What would you advise people if they wanted to check into this type of investing in this? I love, like you say, the opportunities are in the failed subdivisions and things like this. If you were going to another market, you're looking for probably that natural path of growth, talking to the people on the ground there and the brokers and the builders, maybe even who you'd eventually want to be selling these deals to, on where they're looking, what they've done all that research privately. You know, they're interested in like you said, picking up shovel ready properties that people can deliver to them. How do you go about, for example, you're going to Vegas, deciding that that's the right market? What are the factors that you're like, that looks like it's a possibility for me to do this?
Great question. Yeah. To step back for a second, one of the easiest ways to shorten the learning curve, and the way I've done it over and over, is I go find someone who knows what I want to know. I help them somehow, and then I learn from them, right? None of this, I didn't go figure any of this out on myself, because plenty of people have done it. There's nothing new or really that complex within real estate. So with whatever you want to do, if you're brand new, find someone who's a subject matter expert, help them some way, and learn from them. So I'll throw that out there. So the friend of mine that I told you I've learned a lot of this from, he's done over 400 land deals in this market in Nevada. And he said, oh, hey, you should go check this out, right? So that was what initially drove me to look at it. But I remember when I started by calling some realtors, the realtors that had lots of land listings, and just talking to them. And I was talking to the one who had most of the land listings in the market. And he goes, yeah, prices have gone crazy. We got all these California people. Oh, ding, 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 right? When California people come in, prices explode, right? So number one, he's like, prices have tripled. Builders are starting to build out. There's some nice subdivisions within the subdivision being built out around the golf, right? So those three things were very familiar, because those are the same things that are happening here. Californians moving in, prices going up. He told me a lot of retiring baby boomers, one of the largest demographics in the country, were coming there, right? I said prices have just gone up, but that's one of the biggest ones, because
how do you avoid sprawl though? There's there's that, but then there's but it could be just sprawl where it just keeps, we've experienced some of that in the apartment business in Eastern Washington over the years, where when people want to move to Eastern Washington during that cycle, people just start building more apartment buildings because there's so much space to do so, right? So you're always trying to get in on, some part of the cycle before the sprawl just, starts to happen. Or maybe, what do you think about that, what I'm just saying there?
I am glad you said that, because one of the most important points I want to make is, this is how I'm making money. It's not where I'm investing. This is just a business to make money. If I'm going to buy a long-term buy and hold in one of these markets, it needs to be a really, really good deal. My rentals are in Colorado Springs. Right. And there's plenty of jobs. There's tech, healthcare, military, education here. So
this is how you raise your capital to buy your passive deals.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up. Okay. So on one bucket, on one side, we have land and development. That is my active business that makes me money. On the other side, we have the investing, right? That is the side where I'm going to buy and hold, and I get passive income. Well, mostly passive income from, right? So important distinction there. That I don't necessarily want to go buy and hold a rental in Colorado City, but it's a great place to build or buy and sell land right now.
Right. Exactly the point. So it's kind of like your day job, or your capital raising. And the part about the sprawl is he's not worried about it because he's not investing there. He's, right. So he doesn't have to, he's not going to get that ding. I mean, you are sort of, because you are closing on these parcels. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yep.
So you could potentially get a ding if the market, the scary thing about these days is that information is so instantaneous. It seems like market shifts or whatever can almost happen so much faster because of the age that we're in, with, information available, and people's sentiment can change on a dime, it seems like. But yeah, are you sitting on a bunch of lots right now?
So the way my business is set up, I usually have them sold, or buyers are already looking at them before I even close on them. Gotcha. Right. So, I mean, I close on them, but they're moved so quickly. And then also I'm buying them at 30, 40, sometimes 50 cents on the dollar, that offers a lot of room for error too. If I had to cut the price in half and sell it off to someone, I could. And then also, just at this point, I have a pretty solid network of older investors who have far more money than they need. So again, that that offers an out if need be, I could always just resell it at what I bought it for to one of those people. I try and minimize that window of exposure, which is a big part of why I'm not building on that many. I'm only building on the prime ones, and I'm building a very simple 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,500 square foot ranch that is palatable to the biggest demographics in the country right now, the first-time home buyer or the downsizing baby boomer. And even if the market crashes tomorrow, they're still going to need housing and likely going to want it somewhere that's affordable. And the markets I'm in are very affordable. So with the spread plus who the product is built for, there's a lot of about as much safety as you can have as far as building goes, in my opinion.
It would seem like it'd be a great idea for you to like just start running with a buyer's list of these retail buyers and reverse engineer it, right? Like kind of like reverse wholesaling. You just go shopping for what they want. You know, you've got your name out there and you're established as a land, a guy that's able to dig out land deals and build if they need to. And it seems like reverse engineering, having a big list of buyers and you just go shopping for them. That's what a lot of wholesalers do, right? For example.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. It is basically what I'm doing, right? So the multifamily lots are very in demand. So I have my acquisitions manager cold calling R5 lots right now, which are multifamily. So
What is the most challenging part of the land investing biz?
Oh, gosh, I think for me, it was more of a mental thing, especially when you're getting started, relative to, how do I put this? Just the capital involved, right? Let's say you're working a normal job. And so you make 50 grand, pretty average, 50, 60, 70 grand. And if you're buying and selling 3, 4, 5 parcels for, 12 to 15,000 that are worth 30, these are just big numbers. And it can be intimidating, right? Even though, you can look on the market, see dozens of them, see what they're selling for, they're worth 30, 35. It's intimidating to go put, 50 grand out on several parcels. Cause I do close on these. I've assigned a couple, but the vast majority of the time I close on them. So for me, and especially with that background of where I came from, again, growing up, the world was always ending. Everything was always getting worse. It's just very negative mentality. Getting onto that took a long time, so for me, and sometimes I still struggle with that. I wired 50 grand last week and I know that I bought, over 100 grand in land with that 50 grand, but it's still intimidating,
Right.
So that was probably
because you're not putting debt when you close, you're paying cash, right? Nobody's loaning unless you had private money partner or something. You don't
I do have investors. Yeah.
Okay. But you don't work with any banks on, or, on purchasing land. You're paying cash, right?
Yep.
And so the strike zone of it sounds like you've gotten some sweet deals where you're paying just a few $1,000s for land, or tell us about how the note setup works for you when you're buying on notes.
Yeah, great question. So notes, just in case anyone doesn't know, it's the same thing as what your bank does when you go buy a house, right? So I'm lending to the buyer myself. So for example, there's 2 I closed last month. I bought one for 14 and then I paid the closing costs. So my basis was like 14.9 and I sold it at 30. He put $15,000 down and then there was about 100 in closing costs on the back end. So I got all my capital out. And now that remaining principal, about 15 grand, is financed over 5 years at 8% interest, right? So that just creates passive income for me every month. I really look at it like an annuity, right? It's not equivalent to a rental because it's not appreciating. It's not, there's no deductions involved, but it's still just a nice little income stream that pays overhead and bills and so on. So some of the parcels I sell that way, but
how does that work for the buyer? Because they're going to go build, right? The intention is they'd go build their own home.
So generally, no. I make it very clear and put it in the contract. Hey, you cannot build until this note's paid off.
Gotcha.
There's been a couple people who I know and trust. So in that case, I'm okay being second to the bank who finances the construction for them.
Right.
But generally, no. Yeah.
Okay, good. Because I was going to say, what position do you end up in there? But no, you have them pay, they take it down and then they go work out their financing for their construction and pay you off before they do that. Gotcha.
Yep.
Good stuff. Cool. Awesome. Well, we're getting a little bit longer here. So let's talk real quick on mindset and
Yeah.
goal setting for yourself. If you have any mindset tips for people or how you learn to get your mindset correct. And then I'd love to hear what some of your maybe 1 year and longer term goals are.
Sure. So that's a great question, because I remember when I was new and I heard people talking about mindset, and it irritated me at the time, because I didn't know. And I just wanted to hear, go do this, and this, and you'll be a millionaire, right? That's what we all want to hear. But the reality is you have to get into the right frame of reference, into the right mindset to even understand a lot of what's going on, or to build a business in general, right? And for me, and I think a lot of people, getting over that scarcity mentality is one of the biggest hurdles. And for people who are new, this takes time, and it's normal. A lot of us, especially people that are driven to entrepreneurship, probably came from a lower income background, right? Where it's always about penny pinching and saving money. And that can be great when you're getting started. You want to be frugal, sure, but you can trip over $100 bills picking up pennies. I think that's a good way to put it. And I wish I could shake myself a couple of years ago. And I was so afraid to invest money back into the business, pinching pennies, right? You don't have to spend money to make money. You can use effort, hustle, as they say. But once you've got your business going, investing in employees, that's probably the biggest thing I wish I would have done sooner. This year, and again, we're still talking mindset here, because it was my short-sighted scarcity mindset that stopped me from doing this, being afraid to give away some of what I was making. But in the context of hiring people, for example, 2 + 2 can equal, or 1 + 1 can equal, 4 or 5, right? This has been a year where I've learned the importance of leveraging other people, and the acquisitions manager I have is exceptional, and it allows me to go work on much bigger deals while the basic land business continues to run. So
Right.
Being a little bit off topic, but really when it comes to mindset, this, for me, what I can speak on is getting out of the scarcity mindset. I think just listening to podcasts, reading books from people who are where you want to be, and then also just going out there and doing it. Because once you get some level of success, that is probably one of the biggest things that helped me get out of that mentality. And I'm not near as afraid to spend money to make money. Whereas a few years ago, I definitely was, and I spent too much time worrying about $1 as opposed to figuring out how to go make millions of dollars.
The people that I've surrounded myself that have been my mentors, or I've seen do the best in my life, are people that share the wealth, right? And they're not afraid to let other people that work with them in some capacity benefit from being involved with that person, right? They have that. I mean, people will kill themselves to get opportunities to work with somebody successful, right? And I mean, they will work their butts off, right? And I've just noticed that I've been doing this for over 25 years, and the most successful people I have ever worked with and still work with today, or are partners with today, is because they shared the wealth. I am where I am today because somebody who I worked for shared the wealth as I was learning the business, right? And that's how I got to do what I am today. And now I can do it on my own, kind of like you. But one little quick question for you. So now you're kind of moving, you're scaling up in the types of projects that you're looking for, such as the subdivision opportunities and stuff like this. Do you want to say anything about, do you still have your team run your bread and butter business? Have you ever heard of the Peter principle? I don't know that it applies here, but I remember hearing stories of like some of these big guru type flippers that were super successful, right, at flipping properties or wholesaling deals or whatever, cherry picking their own deals. And as they got bigger and bigger and were doing better and better, they kept going for more and more and more. A little bit moving the needle off their bread and butter business, what got them there in the first place. I know of a guy that was kicking butt. He's probably one of the biggest wholesalers in the country. He went off and started buying land deals, right? Which is totally different than what he was doing, which was wholesaling single families or doing flips or maybe some rentals, right? And he started to go off and buy land deals and got caught in the downturn and lost everything because he got too heavy. So it's like, I think that sometimes I see a lot of flippers here go, okay, well, I'm good at flipping. Now I'm going to go start building townhomes or building houses. And we call that the Peter principle. I think it's actually a real term where you kind of get so good at something that you think you can do the next step up. And at some point you kind of hit the peak outside your skill set. And if you go there too hard and too fast because you think you did so well at this, I must be going to be good at this, that they just get a huge spanking. So my question to you is, do you have, or as an older investor in this world, my piece of advice I'd leave you to is, I mean, it sounds like you started your business on some bread and butter doing your subdivision, already shovel ready deals, right? If you take your eye off the ball in your bread and butter business and you go always now for the big stuff, right? Big stuff means big spankings if it goes wrong, right? And so what I'm saying is that I've heard, my recommendation is that you always stick to having your bread and butter going. Somebody else can run it, but at least you're always having that, income, like you said, your day job, right? Versus now pivoting all your eggs into the subdivision, one bad subdivision could be a problem. Does it make sense what I'm saying?
Oh, I'm so glad you said this. It feels like you and I spoke about this beforehand because you brought up several points that have been on my mind. But obviously we didn't talk about this beforehand. So my first task on Monday morning was to make sure that all my mailers for my bread and butter land business were set out and organized for the rest of the month, that I'm hitting the numbers, right? I have a clear number of how many I need to send in order to hit the income goal I want to hit based on my metrics, and that all the lists were skip traced and sent to the people to call them. So I have not taken my eye off that. I did for a moment, a short while ago, and I thought to myself, no, wait, what has actually made you money up to this point?
Right.
And so every week I prioritize those things to make sure they're handled. I have because I still handle where the mail goes, right? That I haven't offloaded that at all. That is the first thing every Monday morning, because that is absolutely the most essential. That is the lifeblood of the land business, right? Because selling is easy right now, but getting the deals. So I have not taken my eye off of that. And then the other thing you said that I really wanted to highlight is one bad big deal can ruin you. So the way that I structure these is very intentional, right? Well, let me backtrack. I haven't done one of these huge deals yet. I'm working on it. But the sellers of this parcel, for example, I'm going to meet him on Thursday. Well, they own it free and clear. So could I raise the money to buy it? Yes. Am I going to? No. I want to set up a deal with him where there's either a JV or seller financing of some kind, or an option or something like that, because you're right. At this stage, that subdivision could take me out. Now, I'm at the point where if I get caught with, let's say, 3, 4, 5 lots, that's fine. I'm fine. It sucks, but it doesn't matter. And so I'm mindful of how I capitalize myself, and when I take on bigger projects, right, how those are structured. With the houses that I'm building, I got 2 going right now. Both of them, right, I have partners on them. And if absolutely we had to, we could hold them, right? Yeah. We could hold them. So I
think that when people get into the land biz, they get, most people are getting in when the market's hot, right? Yeah. The smart people are getting in when the market's not hot and they're land banking it or whatever. But a lot of people are going to listen to this and go, oh man, that seems like something I can do. But like I said, right, it's just, it can turn on that dime like that. For those of you, I also equate this to people in general that aren't doing land deals, but real estate investing in general. You hear everybody talking like financial freedom, let me quit my day job. And I tell people like, hey, put on the brakes, man. You got here because you had a day job that earned this extra capital that you have now that you want to invest. In addition to that, your day job allows you to borrow money, right? Yeah. You switch careers and you go into real estate full time when you're a software developer or a doctor or whatever you want to do, Amazon person. Now all of a sudden you have no ability to borrow money for at least 2 years. And so I think that people don't realize that they can do this while they have a day job. And the day job, I know, if you hate it, then you're going to want to move your way out, but you would never want to do that unless you had passive, or some type of cash flow properties that had your monthly nut plus your reserve covered without issue, right? I think people should just slow down a little and, reach their goals, right? So that's the last question we'll ask you as well, your goals going forward.
Okay, let me quickly say one thing on that point. The last thing I wanted to say is I'm realizing more and more that the most successful people I know who are much older than myself, they just didn't lose their money every recession, whereas a lot of people do. Talking to Rich, the guy I keep telling you about, he's in his 60s. He goes, I knew a lot more real estate investors in 2007 than I do now. Right.
Yeah.
So I think more about mitigating against catastrophic loss, and I'm okay growing slower, right? Because the power of exponential progression, as long as I don't lose, will do its thing, especially starting as early as I did. Okay. So to your next question, goals. You're thinking going into next year, or what are we talking?
Yeah. What are your 1-year goals?
Okay, well, this has been a year where I crushed what I was trying to accomplish, and so I'm in a whole new frame of reference. But next year, I want to make over $1 million just for my active business. And then I haven't set a clear goal yet on the passive side. This has been, again, especially in this last month. I mean, I set the goal of making $250,000 this year, and I blew that out of the water. And I bought a couple houses, and I've got to figure out, I got to sit down, reevaluate what I'm trying to accomplish and really what I want to do, because this all started because I wanted financial freedom. I wanted to get out of traditional employment, and I'm well past that. And I love where I live. I don't want to be anywhere else. Maybe in the summer, go to the beach because I don't really like it here in the summer. But I'm sorry, this isn't a great answer because I need to do some reflection here. But
well, that's okay. You're not supposed to have all the answers yet.
Yeah.
Right?
So I'm trying to finish out the year. I want to hit $500,000 this year. And then I wanted to buy a commercial building before the end of the year, but I ended up buying another house. And then he has a whole bunch more he wants to sell on seller financing. So I'm not sure what's going to happen there. So really, I need to sit down and reevaluate and reassess what I'm trying to accomplish. So
maybe we'll come back to you. We'll have you on again, sometime next year, and we'll learn about how it went with your big subdivision project. That would be fun.
Yeah.
And just see how it's going for you, because you're an interesting guy, and you've accomplished a lot. That this isn't something, like you said, it's not rocket science. It's when you explain it, going after failed subdivisions, it sort of makes sense. I think for people, it's more like, well, where would I do that? Or what, can I do that near me? And, you guys are all welcome to join my, I'm talking to our audience here on Thursdays, 11:30 to 12:30. We have a weekly mastermind, and that stuff we can talk about there. If you guys want to join us there, just go to meetup.com and grab the link for Seattle Investors Club there. It doesn't change. It's the same every week. That same link, that'll get you to the Zoomy access here from 11:30 to 12:30 on Thursdays Pacific time. And we can talk more about this kind of stuff. I have one little last question for you though, Dan.
Sure.
You mentioned the word option. You're like, I'm not going to buy it. I'm going to either seller finance it or JV it, or maybe an option. We like that kind of creative stuff. If you got an option on a subdivision or some sort of property, what would you do? What does that mean to you? And what would you do with it?
Yeah, so that's a great question. The key there in this specific context, the seller, like I said, he's worn out, had some major life events recently, right? He's got all the typical characteristics of a distressed seller, right? So the goal there would be to find that intermediate builder who would potentially buy the lots before they're completely shovel ready, right? And in that case, right, so if you think of, okay, here's your bucket of all the people that build houses, right? On the far end, you have the institutional builders. They have all the money in the world, but they won't touch it unless it is ready to go, graded pad site, utilities there. But then somewhere in the middle, there are some of the smaller builders who maybe they'd take some of the lots and they buy them right now as is, assuming the plat gets approved. Or maybe they just want the road graded in, So I would go out. It's really just, it would be the same thing as wholesaling in that regard, is solving the problem. All we're doing all day long is solving problems. That's it, right? Whether it's the stressed seller of the piece of land or this house I just bought that was falling apart and to lower the whole house, it's just solving a problem. So if I get it under contract or an option where I have time to go figure it out, I'd be looking to see, well, who could I potentially move this to that doesn't need them completely done and shovel ready? That would be how I'd approach it.
We were talking about, somebody on my team and I were talking about wholesaling versus selling an option. With wholesaling, right, you're not closing on the property, right? You're just putting it under contract in an assignable contract and assigning your contract to somebody else. Maybe you're putting down some earnest money as related to that, right? We haven't finished our discussion, my teammate and I, on this. We were going to talk about it some more, as opposed to putting an option on something and then selling the option. I guess that might mean, in some ways, I guess everything is negotiable in life, right?
Yeah.
So if you put an option on something and sell your option, you're not actually assigning something. You're selling your option contract.
Yeah.
And, we are at a brokerage firm we all have been wholesalers. That's how we all got started in real estate and investing and stuff like that. But we aren't allowed to wholesale at our brokerage firm anymore, which is fine, because wholesaling to me is a little bit of a word for brokering without a license. So, but a loophole around that might be putting an option on something and selling your option, because you're not assigning anything. It's just that sometimes I always think of options that's going to require more cash. Like an option is more expensive than an earnest money deposit, right? Because it's all about how much cash do you have to put down. But that's not really true, because everything's negotiable. An option could be whatever. You could have anything could happen. So if you're listening, Mariska, I'm excited to talk more about that. On the whole option business. We need to find, do you know anybody that does any coaching on options? Because that would be a great topic to have on our podcast as well. But we've had fun today, Dan. You're inspiring, right? Good for you. High five
this was
you,
a fun conversation. You brought up, seriously, you did bring up a lot of things that I've been thinking about lately. Especially what you're saying about not forgetting about bread and butter, because it's easy to get bored, right? It's easy to have FOMO and want to go in 10 different directions, but I've gotten much better at saying no and just only expanding within the niche that I already understand, right? I'm not trying to go from land to mobile home parks. I'm going from land to just a slightly bigger, move within the world of land. So, yeah.
But that's my cautionary point, is that even it's kind of like somebody who starts flipping, who starts buy and holding, who starts doing, now they were doing like paint and carpet flips. Then they started doing, removing walls flips. Then they started doing full gut jobs flips. Next thing you know, they're going to do a flip and then maybe build an ADU in the back. Next thing you know, they think they're going to build 5 townhomes. At some point, like you said, if they don't keep the bread and butter running, you get that spanking when you get higher up the ladder, one big spank from Big Brother there. And, that's my point to people, is be careful, because everybody gets bored. We always find that flippers flip for about 2 years and then they go, why did I not keep some of those properties? Right. And then we find that big time flippers that are, flipping, 30, 50, 100 homes a year, they start building. And that's where I think don't ever let go of the bread and butter stuff comes into play. That's good talk. Awesome
Yep.
stuff. All right. You guys going to do anything fun this week? Dan, you have any fun hikes or anything this week?
Let's see. This week, I'm going out to Buena Vista to see a buddy of mine. Him and his wife actually just bought a fixer-upper out there. Of course, I met him through real estate. And so I don't know if either of you are familiar with where that is, but it's kind of in the middle of Colorado, right up against the Sawatch range. So just 14ers all over. Going to go out, see him, see the new house, and we're going to go mountain biking.
Cool.
So yeah, it's a beautiful time of year here. So I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Joe,
What
you're
about
in
you all?
your mountain biking season, aren't you?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. I'm going to go mountain biking this week too.
Nice.
Awesome. Not me, guys. I will not be mountain biking this week, but I'll be living vicariously through the two of you. So, all right.
Snowboard, right?
I am a snowboarder. That is for sure.
That's
Right
cool.
on. Well, all right, Dan, we're going to have you back because we want to hear from
Okay.
you maybe next year and see how you've
Sure.
progressed and what's going on as you continue to move into bigger deals. That's exciting, right? And we wish
Absolutely.
you all the best success and hope to be able to call you a friend here going forward. Come see us anytime.
Absolutely. Joe, Julie, thank you. I enjoyed it. Appreciate you having me on.
Right on. All right,
Absolutely.
guys. Joe, where can everybody find the details of today's podcast?
Yeah, guys, if you would like to get to any of the show notes that I've taken today or links that we've mentioned, head over to seattleinvestorsclub.com/151 or just scroll down if you're watching this on YouTube or hit the button to get to the notes section, depending on where you're watching it. And all that will be down there below.
One thing we forgot to mention is, Dan, do you have any websites or YouTube stuff that people can follow along with?
Yeah. So I started making YouTube videos just of questions people ask me. So Dan Haberkost on YouTube. And then along that same line, I thought I just made a website, Dan Haberkost. You can see what I'm working on, some of the
Cool.
projects, stuff like that.
Good stuff. Well, fun stuff, guys. Thanks again, everybody.
Thanks,
And
guys.
catch you next time. Adios.
Thanks for listening to the Seattle Investors Club podcast. If you have questions that you'd like to have answered on the show, shoot us an email at info@seattleinvestorsclub.com. Now go out, take that action, and build that real estate business. Thanks for listening.